This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mintz.
I returned home from the markets on Thursday morning to find the front door busted open and all of my possessions either on the floor or strewn across the kitchen table or my workbench. Nothing was saved. It was all gone. Even the innocuous stuff like my blender and toaster, gone. I couldn't even make a cup of coffee to mull over the destruction of my house while I sifted through the remains because the kettle was busted open. I called Amanda for comfort, but she was at work and couldn't come over until later that afternoon. I needed someone, a shoulder to cry on. The obvious advice she gave was to call the police. I dialed the front desk number for Shellview Station, knowing the situation didn't call for an emergency response. As I listened to the dial tone ring out, I hung up just before Luann at the front desk answered. Something caught my eye, glistening on the floor as I looked around the remnants of my living room. The tip of a nail, an index fingernail. I recognized the intricacies of the pattern, the swirl of the ocean as it ran alongside the bow of a ship. Even though it was only the tip, such a story was told on such a small canvas. I knew exactly who was responsible. That's why I called you, to tell you my story. I need you to get back the black box. It contains a priceless family heirloom, passed down through generations. Phoebe broke into my home for the specific purpose of acquiring this item and using its contents to alter the course of our lives. Trevor paused the automated message left on his answering machine as he sat in his rented SUV and watched the house on Hill Street. It had sat dormant for 3 days in a row. He made sure to park at least 50 meters away from his target and had strategically placed a hidden camera in a hedge across the road that sent a feed to his second mobile phone. He remained on location during business hours in case the woman in question, Phoebe Safepond, made her way home. At 3 days and 2 nights, Trevor began to wonder if she ever would. Then, at 4:30 on a Monday afternoon, she did. He spotted her walking past his rental, strolling towards her house in designer shoes and corporate attire. Her hair had been newly colored and trimmed, and her famous nails, with a new design, glistened in the afternoon sun as she approached her semi-detached duplex. She walked as if she didn't have a care in the world. Trevor removed himself from the car to confront the woman he had been hired to get the item back from. "Miss Safepond?" he asked. Phoebe turned around to see who was speaking. "I'm Trevor Manfield. I'm a private investigator," he informed her, holding up a business card. Phoebe took it instinctively and glanced at the name that matched his introduction. She held it back to him as if it were a used handkerchief. "I've been sent here by Melanie DeFazio," he explained. "Who?" replied Phoebe. "That's cute," Trevor said with a wry smile. "She wants her black box back. Last week you broke into her home, caused thousands of dollars in damage, and walked away with what doesn't belong to you." He scratched his nose, letting his words sink in. "She wants it back." "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied. She turned on her heels and began walking toward her home. Only a few more steps and she would be inside, door closed, locked, and Trevor would have blown his chance to intimidate her into submission. He knew he had to act. "I'm here to serve you. A summons to appear in court, Miss Safepond," Trevor said. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope with nothing inside. She didn't need to know that. "My client really wants her item back, and she is not afraid to use legal resources to achieve her ends," he added, handing her the envelope. Phoebe looked at him, standing just a meter from her property boundary. She stared at the envelope. "If I give it back, will she leave me alone?" she asked. "Those are my instructions," said Trevor. "All she wants is the black box. It's a family heirloom." Phoebe stood at the fence line. She looked at her front door, then back at the envelope. "You don't understand," she said. "It's not a family heirloom. It's not something I can let go of. It's not safe." "I don't need to know the details, Miss Safepond. All I need is the item, and I will leave you alone. I'm sure you know I've been sitting in my SUV for the past 3 days, waiting for you to return home. Surely you understand the lengths my client will go to. I'm just the beginning." He placed the envelope back in his coat pocket. She looked at him, a sad defeat in her eyes. "One moment," she said, walking her garden path and entering the house. She closed the door behind her, and he heard the distinctive lock click into place. He waited at the boundary line, hoping she would make the right decision. He observed the Tissot on his left wrist and watched the second hand guide the minutes around a quarter of the face. He huffed as the wait grew longer than anticipated. That's when he decided to breach the boundary, walk to the front door and knock, a gentle reminder that he was still there and not going away. But she emerged from inside just as he took the first step. In her hand was a pistol, a small caliber weapon. It looked old, like it belonged to a police officer from the 1960s. "That your father's?" he joked. "I'm not giving you the box," she said. She cocked the hammer and pointed the weapon at his chest from the doorway. Trevor raised his hands. "You don't understand. It's not just a black box. It's something more." In her right hand, she held up the item in question. It was shaped like a small jewelry box that might have once held a wedding band. Jet black, polished, possibly a stained wood. Trevor took a step back. He knew his training would allow him the opportunity to disarm her and take the box regardless, but the situation didn't lend itself to such a drastic response. She was just intimidated. She had the right to defend herself. There was always a plan B. He'd tell Melanie that. There was no need to scare the living daylights out of a woman. Pop. The weapon fired and caught Trevor square in the gut. The searing pain brought him to his knees. He cradled the wound as he crouched on the floor, resisting the urge to scream, though that's all he wanted to do. He wondered if he could make it to his car, but his legs wouldn't allow it, and the pain in his gut worsened with every passing minute. The concrete beneath him was now painted in a fresh layer of dark red blood. A pair of hands presented themselves with intricately designed fingernails, the Mona Lisa holding a goblet with a smile, different to the one she was famous for. Trevor could make out the detail despite his agony. In Phoebe's hand was the black box. She knelt down beside him and he looked into her eyes. "Just relax," she said calmly. "Call an ambulance," he begged. "Trust me," she said. He watched as she opened the black box and saw a dial inside. She ran her index finger over the circular imprint. As she did, he felt the bullet inside his belly begin to move. He squirmed in pain. She rotated her finger faster over the dial, and he watched in astonishment as the bullet removed itself from his stomach and the wound sealed up, almost as fast as it had arrived. The bullet sped across the front garden and returned to the barrel of the weapon lying on the floor near the front door. The pop reverberated backward as the bullet recoiled back inside the gun. The blood that had pooled around him rematerialized inside his body just before the wound sealed. The pain vanished. He was whole again. He sat on the footpath with his hand on his belly, just to be sure. "This," Phoebe said, holding up the black box, "cannot be left in the hands of someone who does not understand its power." She stood and walked back to her front door. She gave him one final glance as she closed it and locked it with an unmistakable click. Trevor lay down on the footpath, taking in a deep breath as he contemplated what almost was.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.